My grandmother always say, everything in life go better when you pray first. Let's do that. Heavenly Father, use me tonight as an instrument that I will speak through me, so whatever results that you desire here tonight will be accomplished in all things. Thy will, not mine, be done. Amen. What I love most about AA is the simplicity of it. There's a line in our book that bottom lines that for me, and it's in the chapter Working Fathers. I don't know what page and what paragraph. I was told this is a program you utilize, not memorize. But there's somewhere in that book, there's a line that says, remind the prospect that his recovery is not dependent upon people. It is dependent upon his relationship with God. If I had the power to get sober on my own, I'd have never come to AA. Why should I? That's the reason that I pray before I introduce myself from behind the podium. It's to keep me grounded and centered in the truth. And the truth is simply this. The reason I'm here tonight is to do God's will, not mine. And that prayer also serves to remind me that He is in charge here tonight. And as always, thank God, I am not. Good evening. My name is Kent Coleman. I'm an alcoholic. I was raised right. I want to demonstrate that. Of course, my mother was here. She would say, you didn't turn out right. But that's another story. But I was raised right, and I want to demonstrate that. And I want to thank this committee for their kindness, and for all the phone calls, all the texts. I was asked to do this over a year ago, for staying in constant contact with me, Eric, and being a living demonstration of how service work is done in this fellowship. I want to thank the guys that picked me up yesterday, David, and the two guys from Sober Living that picked me up yesterday. And that was one of the best rides I've had in a while. I love new guys. New guys are the lifeblood of Alcoholics Anonymous, man. We had a heck of a ride down here yesterday. It is an honor and a privilege to participate at any level in the life-giving, life-changing, life-saving fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know about nobody in here, but mentally, physically, and spiritually, I came here more dead than alive. How can you possibly outgive something that restores life to the living dead? You can't. But it's a lot of fun trying, ain't it? No. So anytime I'm asked to do anything, whether it's set up and clean up at my home group, chair a meeting, go into the jails, the hospitals and institutions, anything that I'm blessed and privileged to do in Alcoholics Anonymous that allows me to live in the answer instead of the problem, I always say thank you. And so thank you to this committee. Some of y'all are thinking, well, this guy came all the way from Ohio. Maybe he got something new or profound to tell us. It's a little story that I want to tell you that'll give you some insight into tonight's speaker. It's a story about three boys that get called into the principal's office on the last day of school. And for simplicity's sake, we'll call them Mike, Mark, and Kent. And the reason we was called into the principal's office is very simple. It's because we was 18 years old and they had decided it was time for us to get out of the 6th grade. So, we came in there and sat down. The principal looked at us and said, you grown men, you're causing us all kinds of problems now. So here's what I'm going to do. I want you out of here. I'm going to ask each of you one simple question. And if you answer it correctly, I'm going to promote you to the 7th grade. First, he looked at my buddy Mark and he said, Mark, let me ask you a simple question. What is it that a woman has two of that a man loves to get his hands on? Boy, Mark sat there for a minute. He rubbed his chin. He thought about it. Finally, he said, I know. He said, hands. A woman got two hands and a man loves to hold hands with a woman. Principal said, congratulations, Mark. You're now promoted to the 7th grade. Then he looked at my buddy Mike. He said, Mike, let me ask you a simple question. What is it that a man has one of that a woman loves to get her hands on? Boy, Mike sat there for a minute. He scratched his head. He pondered it. Finally, he said, I know. He said, a wallet. A man got one wallet and a woman loves to get her hands on a man's wallet. And the principal said, congratulations, Mike, you now promoted to the 7th grade. Then he looked at me and he said, Kent, now I'm going to ask you a simple question. I said, God, I hope so, because I missed them first two. Hey, we are not a glum lot. If newcomers could see no joy or fun in our existence, they wouldn't want it. I know I had enough misery before I came up in here. So if you came up in here tonight to hear some kind of, sad song, I ain't the one. I ain't the one. I absolutely insist on enjoying life. I love the way Bill Wilson writes. I have been rocketed. I have been rocketed. into the fourth dimension of existence to a level of life better than the best I have ever known. And what's available to me in here, if you brand new, is available to you. It's available to you. And I want to talk to our new friends here for a minute. When I came to the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, I didn't come here with AA etiquette. I ain't know nothing about Alcoholics Anonymous. I had never been here before, nor did I know any other living human being who would admit to having been here before. I didn't know what an open meeting was. I didn't know what a closed meeting was. I didn't know what a sponsor was. I didn't know a big book from a Rand McNally Atlas when I came up in here. And I remember what it was like to be new. See, I didn't walk in the doors of AA and somebody sprinkled pixie dust on my head and all of a sudden I understand everything that there is to understand about Alcoholics Anonymous. I knew nothing about that. So I want to talk to our new friends here because I want you to know something. When I came up in here, didn't nobody call me dummy and tell me to sit down and shut up. Didn't nobody make me feel less than because I already felt lower than a snake's belly. Nobody made me feel less than. Nobody did anything here but extend to me patience, tolerance, kindness, and love. And to extend that to the new people in here, for that I am responsible. For that I am responsible. So, you know, when I came up in here, I saw two very distinct groups of people. People who were staying sober and people who weren't, okay? We'll call the people who weren't group one, people who were group two. Now, the people in group one was in and out, in and out. Every time they came back in from being out, they looked worse than the last time they came back in from being out. I never seen nobody come back up in here passing out $50 bills and driving a BMW talking about how good it was out there. No. Restless, irritable, and discontented, and they talked of terror, bewilderment, frustration, and despair. And we'll call them group one. And then we had group two, and if you've been at this Roundup any amount of time this weekend, you have seen group two people in action. Okay? Greeting at the door, working at the registration, hosting, driving folk. You see them at your home group, making coffee, setting up tables and chairs, putting out the literature. They talk about God, big book, steps, spirituality, enjoying life, and helping other people. We'll call them group two. Now, as my story will prove to you, I am no rocket scientist, but it sure looked to me like the people in group two had a heck of a better deal than the people in group one. Okay? So keeping this thing simple, right? I asked myself, what does the people in group two have in common that the people in group one don't? Okay? First off, the people in group two had something called a sponsor. Now, I used to play softball for Cronin's Tavern. They was our sponsor. They gave us free beer and clothes, and I thought, hey, maybe AA ain't so bad. You know what I mean? And y'all sat me down and you taught me what a sponsor was. You said a sponsor is somebody who has working knowledge and experience with the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous as outlined by the founders in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, who is willing to take the time to share with you the program of recovery as outlined in that book, and just as importantly, or maybe even more importantly, in my opinion, is a living demonstration of those principles in their life that can show me through what they do what my life can be like if I do what they do. They told me when I came here, as monkey see, monkey do, just make sure you follow the right monkey. And you notice I said working knowledge and experience, not book knowledge and experience. To our new friends here tonight, I want to share something with you. The program of recovery is not about the acquisition of knowledge and intellect. It is about the application of principles to my life. Okay? And I didn't understand all that exactly when I got here. I have sponsorship in Alcoholics Anonymous today. I'm sponsored by Bob D. in Las Vegas. I have the continued spiritual guidance of Ken B. in Parma, Ohio, and Bill F. in Lorain, Ohio. Bill is sober 50 years. Kenny is sober 40 years. Bob is sober 34 years. That's 124 years of continuous sobriety that I have at my disposal 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, if I choose to use it. Okay, let me share something with you if you're new up in here. Having a sponsor is a great thing. Being sponsorable is a heck of a lot better. The only results I have ever gotten from anything in Alcoholics Anonymous have come from actions I've taken, not people and things that I've known. Okay? If you're new in here tonight, I like to do this sometime. There's a lot of people in here, and I think I do it tonight. If you don't want to participate, you don't have to. But with everybody that's in this room right now who would be willing to sponsor a newcomer in AA, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. If you're new and you ain't got a sponsor, I just hooked you up. See, no one ever need leave an AA meeting without the benefit of sponsorship. Okay? And I do that and everybody laughs, but I do that for a reason. See, because I remember what it was like to be new. See, when I came in here, I don't know if you got 10 years or 10 minutes, nor do I know if you're willing to help a guy like me who in my heart felt I didn't even deserve no help. And I do that for a reason. So if you're new here tonight, the help that you need just identified itself. What you do with that information is up to you. I carry the message. I don't carry the alcoholic. Okay? Another thing that people in group 2 had in common was something called a home group. I was told when I came in here, Kent, you ain't the most responsible person we've seen come into AA. And you need to start getting responsible, giving back to this fellowship that has given so much to you so that you can take that responsibility outside of here and apply it to your life. When I came to AA, I was taught the most important thing is not what I do between the Serenity Prayer and the Lord's Prayer, but what I do between the Lord's Prayer and the Serenity Prayer. This is a design for living. This ain't something that I compartmentalize in my life for 1 hour in an AA meeting and go back out here and be the guy that I was before. Because I can tell you this, the man I was will drink again. And I can tell you why I know that, because he always did. He always did. I have a home group today. It's the Friday night Venice group of Alcoholics Anonymous in Sandusky, Ohio. I had a home group in Las Vegas where I lived for the last year, and it was called Connect the Dots. Now, I'll tell you something about my home group. Ain't the best group in the world. It ain't the worst group in the world. It's just an AA group. My sponsor, Bill, told me when I got here, son, it's okay to stop competing now. Prior to Alcoholics Anonymous, everything in my life was lived on a better than or less than basis. And a thing happens when I live better than or less than I'm never a part of. Tradition 1 said our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. Anytime I consciously or unconsciously separate myself from you as better than or less than, then I am once again on my own, and my history will prove that on my own, I'm a dead man. This is what I like to call the total package in Alcoholics Anonymous. Sponsorship, big book and step, home group, and service. We have 3 legacies in AA, unity, recovery, and service, and they are covered in those things. In my experience, which is the only thing I'm allowed to share from behind the podium, I have yet to see an alcoholic of our type. And if you don't know what an alcoholic of our type is, read the book. I have yet to see an alcoholic of our type come in here, take those things and apply them to their life one day at a time to the best of their ability, which is all that's required. If you're new here, I'm going to take the pressure off you. God don't require more of you today than you're capable of. God has already equipped you with everything that you need to be happy, joyous, and free this day. Okay? I'm a guy who likes to set unreasonable goals for himself, not reach them, then say, what the heck, forget it, and then go get drunk. God don't require more of me today than I'm capable of. I have yet to see one come in here and do that and go back out and take a drink. I ain't seen it happen one single time, and I've been here for a while. To our new friends, the program of recovery was designed for success, not for failure. Dr. Bob, co-founder of AA, if you read his story, The Doctor's Nightmare, in the back of the book, on the last paragraph, he said it never fails. On the flip side of the coin, and there is a flip side of the coin, I have yet to see an alcoholic of our type come in here, ignore those things, and stay sane, sober, or happy for any appreciable length of time. The simplicity of Alcoholics Anonymous. Those who do get, and those who don't, and it's just that simple. I don't know about you, but I never sat in the bar room watching a guy across the bar take a drink and think I was going to get drunk watching him drink. That's just as ridiculous as me coming in here, sitting in an AA meeting, watching you get a sponsor, work the steps, get a home group, and get active, and think that somehow magically it's going to rub off on me. Those who do get, and those who don't, and it's just that simple. Okay? I identified myself as alcoholic. I didn't know what that was when I got here either. Of course, I had a definition. Because I think I know everything when I got here, right? I didn't know what an alcoholic was. I'm a graduate of a major university in this country. They didn't teach alcoholism where I went to college. They should have. Half the room would have qualified, but they didn't, right? So when I came in here, y'all remember Otis on the Andy Griffith Show? I was just wrinkled clothes, always had a pint in his pocket, in and out of jail. I watched every episode of the Andy Griffith Show, even the ones in color. I don't remember Otis working no place. All right? So that's my definition of an alcoholic, man. I was in London, England, and I said that. I said, y'all remember Otis on the Andy Griffith Show? And 2,000 people went, no. My sponsor said, can you just remember where you... I thought they had cable. I didn't know. Anyway. I had a definition of alcoholism all the time. It was a sliding definition. And the reason I say that is because as my disease progressed, I kept fitting them. So every time I fit it, I changed it because I can't be one, right? As a teenager, if you'd asked me, I said alcoholic, somebody that's drunk every day. I don't know where I got that from, but that's what I believed. As a teenager, I became a daily drinker. Well, I guess that ain't it. I said alcoholic is somebody that misses work, school, or important things in life because of drinking. It interferes with one's priorities in life. Yes, that most certainly must be an alcoholic. As a teenager, alcohol began to interfere with work, school, important things in life. That must not be it. Finally, I figured it out. An alcoholic is somebody who go to jail because of drinking. As you'll hear in a few minutes, I really had to change that one. By the time I staggered through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous, my definition of an alcoholic was the guy you see under a bridge. You've seen him. Long trench coat, stocking cap on his head in July, drinking Wild Irish Rose, Mad Dog, a Thunderbird out of brown paper sack, and sleeping under a cardboard box. Yes, that certainly must be an alcoholic. The only reason that was my definition of alcoholic when I got here is that the only thing that had not yet happened to me. And if I didn't have a family that absolutely insisted on breaking every fall that I had for many, many years, that's exactly where I would have been. I can stand here tonight in all honesty and tell you, I drank in Wino's Alley in Sandusky, Ohio with them old men. Only difference between me and them is when it got dark, there was somebody who would open the back door for me, and there was nobody to do it for them. You know, I had the nerve to come into Alcoholics Anonymous when I was new and sit in an AA meeting and poke my chest out and say, you know, I ain't never been homeless. There was a man at that meeting, God rest his soul, his name was Jim Redmond. He died 53 years sober. He looked at me and he said, son, I got some bad news for you. He said, if you grown and you living in your mom and daddy's house and you ain't paying no rent, you homeless. That man hurt my feelings. And I hope I ain't step on no toes in here tonight. But I'm going to tell you something. The truth will set you free. So what is this thing called alcoholism? Doctor's opinion, first thing in the book. I got to know what the problem is before I can get to any kind of solution. What is the problem? I got a disease. It's threefold. It's mental, it's physical, and it's spiritual. The mental part of it, they call it the mental obsession to drink. What is an obsession? I'm a simple guy. An obsession is a thought in my mind that is so powerful it will override or overcome any thinking that I as a human being can raise as a defense against it. What are some of the mental defenses I tried to raise against the first drink? Well, I tried common sense. My grandmother explained to me later why that didn't work. I wasn't born with any. I tried self-knowledge. I did this last week. Went here, did that. We end up in jail. Okay, we ain't going to do that. That didn't work. I tried willpower. Somebody, was it Betty Ford or somebody said, just say no. I don't know which one of them was that said it. Nancy Reagan, one of them, you know. That didn't work. Guy told me later, he said, willpower for an alcoholic is like eating a box of X-Lax and you use your willpower not to go to the bathroom. You know what I mean? But that didn't work, right? I tried fear of consequences I might face if I drank. I'm in my late teens and early 20s. I'm waking up, I'm laying in the bed, feet ain't even on the floor yet, and I'm laying there, eyes open, and mentally making a list of all the reasons why I ain't drinking today. If I drink today, I'm going to flunk out of school, get kicked off the team, lose my job, girl's going to leave, get kicked out of the house, dirty urine, I'm going to the penitentiary. All them things true in my life at one time or another, usually 3 or 4 of them simultaneously if you drink like I drink. So I would lay in the bed, take a look at those things that I don't want to happen, that I'm afraid of happening, and I would make a decision based on truth. Easiest kind of decision to make. I ain't drinking. And I want you to know something. I meant it as much as I mean it right now. If you put a lie detector on my arm, needle wouldn't have moved. Okay? And then I get out of the bed. And usually about 5 seconds later, another thought would come floating in my head. And it usually went something like this. Maybe you can identify with this. You could have one. All right? One drink never, and bam, like a radar, I lock on that thought. I'm only going to have one. And here's the crazy thing about that. Then immediately, all those reasons for not drinking immediately disappear. All right? Because I'm only going to have one. Now, this is an honesty-based program. Honesty is the principle of our first step, and that's the one you got to work 100% every day. So therefore, this is an honesty-based program. Then doesn't it naturally follow that alcoholism is a lie-based disease? My sponsor, Bill, told me when I came in AA, I don't know about you, but I never walked in the bar and said, hey, bartender, give me a shot and a beer. I want to be in jail by 9 o'clock. The truth of the matter is this. Here's my philosophy of life. I've never had one of anything that I enjoy. My philosophy is this. If one's good, two's better, three's outstanding, four's magnificent, let's pony up money for five. I am Dr. Feelgood. Right? So now that I believe the lie, I pick up the drink and I drink it. And the second part of the disease, Dr. Silkworth refers to it as the phenomenon of craving. Now, I got to be honest with you, that wasn't everyday walking around language for me. Mental obsession. I worked at Ford Motor Company. And after work, I'd go and get a ride home. I didn't have a car. And I didn't see nothing wrong with that. And I'd get in the car with the fellas and I'd say, man, I've been thinking about a beer all night. Nobody turned around and said, that's the mental obsession. I didn't know. Here's a little story I'm going to tell you about the phenomenon of craving. True story. 95-degree day in Sandusky, Ohio. I'm riding on my lawnmower, cutting my grass. So is my non-alcoholic next-door neighbor. I'm watching him over there. He get hot and thirsty. He shuts his rider off. He gets off it. He walks across the lawn to his deck. He flips open a cooler. It is full of cold beer. He pulls out a cold one. He pops a top on her. He sucks her down. And I know nobody in this room is going to believe this, but I've seen this with my own two eyes. With that full cooler of beer still sitting there, that man actually got back on his lawnmower and finished cutting his grass. The difference between me and my neighbor, if I get off of my lawnmower and I pop the top on a cold one and I suck her down, it does not quench my thirst. Listen to me if you knew. What it does to me is it makes me thirstier. And grass cutting is over at the Coleman house. My lawnmower be sitting there 2 weeks from now when I get out of the county, because that's how I roll. Right? Spiritual malady, soul sickness. I have no conscious contact with a power greater than myself. I live a godless, self-willed life in which I seek to arrange the people, places, and things in my life to suit my needs. However, my power is not infinite. My power is finite. And the people, places, and things in my life absolutely refuse to cooperate. So I push harder or I pull harder, whatever it is, to try to get my way. And people, places, and things continue to refuse to cooperate. And I become restless, irritable, and discontented. And I learned at the age of 14, if I pour alcohol on restless, irritable, and discontented, it produces in me a sense of ease, comfort, well-being, and fearlessness. This disease of mind, body, and spirit is called alcoholism. And I don't know if you got it, but I definitely got it. And I don't treat it. Death, imprisonment, or commitment are guaranteed me. And if you're new in here and you don't understand that, stick around and watch what happens to the people who don't. I'm now 53 years old. I was born in the city of Sandusky, Ohio, the second of three boys. I was raised in a Christian home. I was taught the difference between right and wrong before my feet ever hit the grass in the front yard. There's nothing spectacular about my childhood other than the fact it lasted 40 years. Y'all can relate, can't you? I had as fine a mother and father that ever graced this earth. I am the son of Pete and Evelyn Coleman. My father was the commissioner of the local Little League. My father worked at General Motors. He was a decorated Korean War veteran. My mom was the president of Ohio Baptist Women's Convention. Was an internationally known person. My mother, the famous people y'all see on TV and religion, and people been in my house. That is the atmosphere in which I was raised. My mother's mother and father and my father's father lived with us. You couldn't have a better deal. My mother worked for Chrysler Corporation. My father worked for General Motors. I'm retired from Ford. I always say we had a lot of craziness in the house, but we had really nice cars. I had an older brother and a younger brother, and out to shoot, I'm restless, irritable, and discontented. I always felt like I was getting the short end of the stick. My older brother is the firstborn son and everybody's favorite. My little brother's the baby coochie cuckoo. Everybody love that baby, right? And I'm always to the side saying, what about mine? What about mine? You know, Clancy talks about a disease of perception, because I can stand here today in all honesty and tell you I was never treated any differently than my brothers. Actually, I was my mother's favorite. No, but I got this thing up here. Okay, the book says the problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. I suffer from a lie-based disease. Half of my brain manufactures BS and the other half buys it, and that's the best way I can explain it to you. Okay? I talk about the head I bought into AA, man. You know, I was new in AA, and I said to my sponsor, Bill, I got a question. He said, what? I said, you know the invisible line they talk about in AA? He goes, yeah. I said, well, Bill, if it's invisible, how does anybody ever know they crossed it? He looked at me and he said, I want you to double your meetings. I said, Bill, I'm already going to 3 a day. He said, go to 6. He said, anytime you in a room alone, all your enemies are there. But as a kid growing up, I mean, you couldn't have a better deal than what we had. I used to read a lot, daydream a lot. My life, as it was, I was painfully shy, insecure, and afraid. Very self-conscious. In here, we call that self-centered. Okay? I'm always worrying about how I look to other people, how I'm dressed, how I talk. Every move I make has to be exactly right so that your perception of me is what I think it ought to be. See, I'm already looking for the outside to make me feel better on the inside. I'm in trouble already. See, and I don't understand any of this stuff. You know, and so as a kid, you know, I'm already wrapped up in that. I daydream a lot. I read a lot of books. I become a character in the books. The reality of my life became an untenable place, so I began to seek different avenues of escape. My first drink of choice, I like to say, was my older brother. I come from a family that plays a lot of football. My father played for West Virginia State. My Uncle Bo played for Penn State. I had 2 cousins played in the National Football League for over 10 years. My family played football on Saturdays and Sundays in front of 90 or 100,000. That's what my family do. That's what we was raised to do. Our baby pictures are us in diapers in a 3-point stance in the living room floor. That's the way my daddy was, right? And I come from a part of the country where football is played in the state of Ohio. And my daddy was from Pennsylvania, and he was from them coal mining hills. And we was raised to play football. I had an older brother, was 4 years older than me. By the time he was 16 years old, he was 6'2". He weighed 215 pounds. He could run a 4.40 on a cinder track with a hand clock. And he committed to play football at the Ohio State University for Woody Hayes. And the year was 1972. On September the 5th of 1972, we used to scrimmage a team in Ohio called the Laughlin Tigers, which was voted the #1 high school program in America by ESPN last year. And at that time, those were the top 2 schools in Ohio, and we didn't have playoffs back then. So we had what we called Blood Saturday, and we would go there, and they would come to Sandusky the following year, and we would play literally a game a week before the regular season started. And on that day, my brother had a big day. He had 4 or 5 runs over 50 yards. He had a very big day. Late in the scrimmage, he had a long run. He was over by the sideline. A guy hit him low. A guy hit him from the back. He fell funny. He got up. He walked to the sidelines. He collapsed. He was not breathing. 9 hours of brain surgery on Monday. He died Wednesday, September the 5th, 1972, and my life changed. And so did a lot of other people's, and that is not what makes me an alcoholic. Stop any car out here on the street today. People live, people die, tragedies happen. That is life, okay? What did it do to me? Looking back at it now and through inventory, what I can tell you is it seemed to intensify the feelings of difference that I already had. There was no counseling in them days. There was nobody, trust me, It broke my heart. It almost killed my mom and daddy, and it really almost killed my grandparents. Changed my entire town, messed his friends up, messed the football team up in our town for years to come. It was a big deal. And that's the first time that I saw evidence. Even in my darkest days in the street, I never doubted the power or existence of God. What happened the next Friday when my brother was laid out at the funeral home, there was literally thousands of people that showed up. The Father House Museum in my town, so that was the largest funeral in the history of Sandusky. And we got to that funeral home, and there was people for blocks. And my mother got out of that car, and she walked up to that casket, and she turned around, and she faced them people, and this is what she said. Don't know when, don't know how, don't know where, don't know why, but one day blessings will result from this. I watched my mother take an entire town and put it on her shoulders and walk us through there. And at the age of 13, I knew that my mother didn't have that kind of power. I have never doubted the power and existence of God. I've seen it. I've seen it. After my brother died, I started hanging around guys my own age. I'm 13 years old. Topics of conversation among my crew at the age of 13, and I grew up with all these guys, knowing them since I'm 2 years old. Topics of conversation amongst our crew in 72, drinking beer, smoking weed, climbing in and out of girls' bedroom windows in the middle of the night, and I was batting 0, 0, 0. I had a mother that did not play that. I went to school, church, ball practice, and home. But you have to understand, how I feel about me is based on what you think of me. So I don't let people know I don't know what they're talking about. Y'all remember them dolls I used to put in the back window of the car with the head to go like this? That's me. Oh yeah, ain't that fun? I was over there last. I'm 13 years old, and I'm a liar, a fake, and a phony. I'm telling people I've been places I ain't been. I know people I don't know, and that I've done things that I haven't done. I am willing to compromise everything that I know and believe to be true to gain your acceptance. I am empty on the inside, and I'm looking on the outside for something to make this right. My mom used to talk to me a lot after my brother died, and she would say things to me like, "Oh, Kenny, God has been so good to you. You're going to have a wonderful life." And I would look at my mother and I'd say, "I don't know where you get this stuff. But if you want to know what I want in life, I can tell you in 30 seconds. I want mine. I want to get it my way. And I'm going to need you to leave me alone while I'm doing it because I ain't going to do it like you." And my mom would get that sad look on her face, and she'd say, "Oh, we didn't raise you like that. You don't get it." And I put my finger in her face. I said, "No, you're the one who don't get it. If you don't think my way is going to work, get out the way and watch me roll." And one of the gifts God did give me is I did well in school. And I give God the credit for that today because I'm a guy that didn't have to work for it. I'm a guy to whom those things come easily. School comes easily for me. And I'm sitting in study hall one day, and I had a visit from the enemy, my thinking. And here's the thought that come to me that day. You know, these people in this study hall, they breaking their neck trying to get B's and C's, taking general math and science. I'm taking calculus, physics, 4th year, Latin, 4th year, English. I'm sleeping through class and getting straight A's. You know, it just might be entirely possible that I know everything. Y'all know where this is headed, don't you? Straight to the penitentiary? No. I had no evidence to support that thought as being true. I accepted it as a fact. I left the room and took action on it. I actually went home and told my mother and father while they was watching the evening news with Walter Cronkite that information because I thought they ought to know. Would change things around the house a little bit, I thought. What happened after that, I can make a long story short. My father came up off that couch. I'm going to tell you something about my daddy. My daddy fought in the woods in Korea. My daddy wasn't in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, or nowhere else. I'm not diminishing them things. My daddy was in the woods in Korea. I had seen the letters, the presidential letters. I had seen the medals. And when my father came up off that couch, I did not wait around to see what he wanted. I broke for the screen door. I scared of my daddy. My daddy played football when he didn't have face masks. I got out the screen door, I closed the screen door, and my daddy was right behind me, and he pointed his finger, and he looked at me through the screen door, and he said, "Boy, I'm going to tell you something. You're going to have a hard life. Kenny, don't nobody know everything." And I stood on that porch, and I looked him in his eye, and I laughed in his face. And that was a significant day in my life, because on that day, I closed the door. Our book says honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness are the 3 essentials of recovery. And I called him the triplets. All triplets have a mother. In my life, the mother of honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness is something called desperation. And until I reached that point, that door was closed. I was no longer teachable. Everybody in my life instantly became an idiot. My mother, my father, the preacher, the teacher, later on the police, the judges, the lawyer, the probation, the PO. You can't tell me because I already know it, and if I don't know it, it ain't worth knowing, became my philosophy of life. Selfish, self-centered, self-seeking, self-absorbed, and according to my mother, mean as a rattlesnake, I have yet to take a drink of alcohol. I tell people I was the perfectly tilled soil for the disease of alcoholism. I already have obsessive thinking. I'm already suffering from a spiritual malady because at the age of 14, I made a conscious decision. See, in my house, you had to go to church on Sunday, every Sunday. And my mother would wake me up and we'd have this big fight every Sunday, right? And I'd always lose. And I was sitting in church one Sunday and I had a visit from the enemy, my thinking. And here's what the enemy told me that Sunday in church. You know, son, you ain't going to be in this house forever. And once you get out of here, you ain't got to do that. You can do whatever you want. I made a conscious decision sitting in church that when I get old enough to call my own shots, I will never again darken the door of a church, and I made that happen. The next Sunday when my mom came to wake me up, I said, not a problem. She said, really? I said, no. I said, you got 2 years, 4 months, 3 weeks, and 4 more days, and I'm done. I can only imagine what she was thinking. Okay? So I already got obsessive thinking. I'm already suffering from a spiritual malady. I've closed the door on that. The only thing I'm lacking is the physical allergy, and now we're about to find out if I got it. I got in the car with a guy that I played basketball with in high school. He was 2 years older than me. He lived the life I lived in my head. Snazzy car, pocket full of money, ran around with the kind of girls I ran away from when I seen them coming down the hall. And I got in the car with Johnny, and Johnny looked at me and he said, hey, Coleman, you want to get something to drink? Now, I have been warned about drinking. Alcoholism does not run in my family. It gallops. And I have been told we do not do alcohol well. Look at your Uncle Ed, look at Junior, look at Bobby. Both sides of my family are rife with this disease. Didn't have it in my house, but both sides of my family. If Johnny had said to me that day, let's go rob the carry out, I guarantee you I'd have done it. That's a little sense of self that I had. Those are the links that I'm willing to go to fill this hole in me that I believe the answer is outside of me. We went through the drive-thru. We put our money together. We bought 10 quarts of Sliss Malt Liquor Bull. To the newcomers in here, the youngsters up in here, that's pre-40 ounce. They used to sell beer in quarts, 32 ounces. And we bought 10. Johnny looked at me and said, 5 for you, 5 for me. And he dropped the convertible top on that beautiful Pontiac, cranked up the Parliament Funkadelic, and we rolled through the streets of Sandusky and we drank that beer. And I'm going to tell you something, my life changed. I heard a lot of people describe the effect of alcohol on that first drunk. Here's what I can tell you. I heard a guy say one time, there comes a moment in the drinking career of every alcoholic, might be the first time they drank, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever, that he takes a drink and alcohol flips the switch and the lights come on. Everything I had ever wanted to be, do, or say immediately became possible. I went from shy, insecure, and afraid to bold, confident, suave, debonair, and absolutely fearless in about 20 minutes. We went behind the Derrick Apartments where all the thugs hung out. I had not said 5 words in public in the last 3 years. I looked at Johnny. I said, turn that music down because there's a few things I want to tell a few people who are present here this afternoon that I've been wanting to tell them for quite some time. And I went around that circle of hoodlums standing around that car. Not only did I tell each and every one of them what I thought of them, I also told them what they needed to do, in my opinion, to improve themselves. The reaction of the guy standing around that car, dudes is leaning in the car and hugging me and say, see, I told you my boy, all right, he loosened up, he's doing a little drinking. I made a mental note of that. When I drink, I change. The way I see me changes, the way I see you changing. Alcohol equals success, and you better believe I got it. We left from there. We went up to the home of some of them girls he run around with, I run away from. Never been over there in my life. I walked into that home like I was paying a mortgage. I went in and sat down at the dining room table, and I looked across the room at a girl I think is the finest girl to graduate from Sandusky High School in his 171-year history. I had never even breathed in her direction, much less said hello. And I looked over there at her, and she looked up at me, and I said, come here. And she got up and started walking toward me. Now, any sane human being at this point would probably think to themselves, gee, Ken, if you weren't so shy and scared, look what you could have done just by speaking up. Is that what I thought? Absolutely not. Here's what I thought, and I can remember it like it was yesterday. If you had been drinking before now, look what you could have done. Dude, look what you've been missing. Huh? Alcohol equals success, and you better believe I got it. Now, I said earlier, this is an honest program, and it certainly is. Because the truth of the matter is, when she got over there to me, I had no idea what to do with her. But guys like me watch a lot of TV. On TV, they go like this. So I did. And she sat down in my lap. And my life changed again. And the bottom line to the whole story is on that day, alcohol did for me what I could not or would not do for myself. No. Now, I'm a consequences drinker. There's a lot of people who come here who haven't had DUIs, been to jail, been in all kinds of trouble, and you do not have to. You can get off the elevator at any floor. The ticket is honesty. You can get off the elevator at any floor. But that ain't my experience. If this here was a beer, then I stood here tonight and took a drink, a cop would drop right out of this light and land in the middle of this place. When I came in AA, man, they said, drink trouble, drink. I was like, I got that. I guess it. What happened the rest of that day? Very simple. Went in a blackout. I have no idea what went on. According to eyewitnesses at the house, I came in the front door, threw up a trail through the house, through the living room, through the kitchen, through the family room. My grandfather fell on the floor laughing. I went in the bathroom, hit everything but the toilet. The next thing that I remember is my mom knocking on the door. Come out here and clean up this mess. You know you've been drinking. Blah, 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 blah. I staggered into the hallway in what later years would be my drinking uniform, my underwear. Bouncing off of them hallway walls, got one of them hangovers you can take out and look at. Y'all know the drill. I went in the bathroom, I locked the door, put my hands on the bathroom sink. I looked through bloodshot eyes into the mirror, and this is what I said, man, oh man, I cannot wait to do that again. Grounded for life is what was being discussed in the living room. And how that sentence, I got grounded for life first time I got drunk. So I had a meeting with myself in the bathroom. I like to have a meeting with myself because I can usually solve anything that's going on. And I had a meeting with myself in that bathroom, and this is what I came up with. Okay, Kent, let's take a look at what happened here. You got drunk? Yep. You got sick? Yep. You got grounded for life. Yes, this is true. Now, the problem is not, Kent, that you got drunk. The problem is that you got sick. What you got to do is learn how to drink without getting sick. Does anybody in here follow me? You see where this is going, don't you? Right? Not drinking was never an option I considered. Why? Man, because alcohol equals pats on the back, girls in my lap. For the first time in my life, I felt whole. And I was gone. And I never looked back till I got to you. Talk a lot of society today about child abuse. You're looking at a parent abuser. Okay? You're looking at a parent abuser. I'm going to tell you what I did to my parents. In our home, prior to me picking up a drink, there was no screaming and hollering. There was no anxiety, tension, and fear. There was no sleepless nights. There was no things said like, we don't trust you anymore. There was nothing like, you're not the son that we raised. None of that stuff. Guilt, shame, remorse. I brought that into my mother and father's home, and I infected them with it, and I made them sicker than I was. Now, I get sick and tired of sitting in meetings and hear people talking about them good old days. Let me share something with you. If you think you had a good time out there drinking, try this. Go get your parents, your significant other, your children, your co-workers, your neighbors, and your creditors. Bring them into a room and say, you know, I had a hell of a time drinking. What kind of time did y'all have? See, I got a disease that would love to plant a seed in my head, okay, that there was something redeeming about from the day I picked it up. You know what my definition of a good time is? Any consequences that have to be paid as a result of my drinking are paid by somebody else. If you have a sleepless night, that's your problem. If you don't get a day's work out of me, that's your problem. If you don't get my bill payment, that's your problem. Do you understand what I'm telling you? I don't play games with this. I don't play games with this. I've been restored to sanity. I seen a commercial at the ball game, and a big boat went by with girls in bikinis laying out, and 5 guys holding up a beer going, it don't get no better than this. That ain't what happens when I drink. Well, I still be drinking. You want to know the truth about my drinking? Show my mother sitting up at 3 o'clock in the morning with tears in her eyes, wondering if I'm dead or alive. You want to know the truth about my drinking? Show my daddy sitting in the courtroom with his head held down and his hat in his hands. You want to know the truth about my drinking? Show my car upside down at the corner of Columbus Avenue and Taylor Street with the wheels spinning in the air. You want to know the truth about my drinking? Show me at age 22 waking up in the morning and laying in the bed with tears in my eyes saying, God, I can't take another day of this. That's what happens when I drink. And I thank God for the restoration to sanity that comes about as a result of these steps. "16 years old, I got a car. I had a 1 o'clock curfew, came home 4:30 in the morning. My mother sitting in the, when I used to come home, my mom would always have her bedroom light on, and she would call me and say, come here so I can see you. Anybody's mama do that? All right? And I would stick my head in the room, and this is what I used to ask my mother, why are you up? You relate? Why are you up? If you and daddy go somewhere, I don't step here at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning waiting on y'all to come home. I want you to understand something. I'm so selfish, self-centered, and full of me, I can't even see you. I cannot comprehend the love of a parent for a child. Understand this, ain't but one thing in this universe, and that's me. When the book says selfishness, self-centered, that's what we think is the root of our problem, you best believe it. And I come home at 4:30 in the morning, my mama got tears running down her face, and this is what my mama told me. She said, Kenny, as your parents, we give you food to eat, roof over your head, clothes on your back, and an education, and we fulfilled our part of the bargain. She said, but buddy, I got something you can't have. She said, that's my peace of mind. She said, Kenny, you going to penitentiary, to the cemetery, and I got a news for you. I ain't going with you. I'm done. I'm giving you to God. Go. Do what you want. I'm done. This is what I said to my mom. I broke you. I broke you. And I want you to know something, because you're such a spiritual giant. It wasn't even that hard. And that's how I left my mother sitting. And I'm talking about the good old days. Graduated from high school. I went to college. I went to Miami of Ohio, to Yale of the West, they call it. If you want to see alcoholism in my family, all you had to do was watch the first day I went to college. All the freshmen coming in on a Sunday, crying, hugging, right, babies leaving home for the first time. If you was watching my family, you would have seen what alcoholism had already done to us. My father unloaded that van like his butt was on fire. They was up I-75 before I got the key in the door. The last thing my father said to me before he went down the steps of the dormitory was, now your mother can sleep. Now your mother can sleep. No parental interference. My alcoholism exploded. By the time I'm 19 years old, I got shakes in the morning. Can't fasten my shirt. I had set up headquarters at the Boar's Head Inn uptown. I went up to see Tom, the bartender. He's kind of like my sponsor. And I told Tom, I said, I think I got Parkinson's. He said, you're 19 years old. Yeah, Parkinson's. He said, here's what you do, son. He said, why don't you go get a fifth of 100 proof old Granddad. When you get up in the morning, drink 2 shots, I guarantee your hands will stop shaking. And when I got the Granddad, I got up the next morning shaking like a leaf. I drank 2 shots, my hands stopped shaking. You know what I said? That man's a genius. My sponsor, Bill, pointed out to me when I came into AA, he said, do you notice that you never questioned the bartender? But you were surrounded by coaches, family, counselors, advisors, friends, people who loved you, and all you ever said to them was, I ain't got to do what you say. I'm grown and I know what I'm doing. It's my life and I ain't hurting anybody. But you never questioned the bartender. To our new friends here tonight, why is it I'm always willing to listen to the people who harm me? Why is that? I went to college with the same goals, hopes, and dreams and aspirations of any young person, but somewhere in between my first and second year, something happened. The worm turned. I was going to be successful in business, so I set up activities to support that goal. At some point, it went from successful businessman to alcoholic. and I arranged my life to accommodate my alcoholism. The classes I took, the people I hung around, the things I did, all to support my drinking. I graduated from college and came home and took a job in a factory. I didn't have to go to college to do that. I could have done that out of high school. Why? Because that accommodated my drinking. They had something in the automotive plants that a guy like me needs. It's called a union. And if you drink like I drink and don't go to work like I don't go to work, you need a union. I'm in my early 20s. I'm carrying alcohol into the plant. I am incapable of working a 12-hour shift without drinking. I'm going to get you through this drinking thing real quick. I've been convicted of driving under the influence of alcohol 7 times in the state of Ohio. I've been convicted on felony weapons charge, felony drug charge. I've been in a lot of trouble. To the new people that's in here, that's podium flash. Dude, that ain't necessary for this here. Okay? If when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, and if when drinking you have any little control, no control over the amount you take, you're probably alcoholic. That being the case, you are suffering from an illness that only a spiritual experience can conquer. And that's all you need to know. I had a heart attack, dropped dead at the age of 28, 48 hours in the cardiac unit. My mother saying to the doctor, I already lost my oldest son. Do what you got to do. I can't lose another. This is the kind of life I'm living. I laid in that bed, tears running down the side of my face, and I swore to God, if you let me live, I'll never drink or do nothing again. And I meant it as much as I mean it now. 48 hours, my heartbeat stable. They put me in a regular hospital room. I'm drunk 2 hours later. If I had the power to quit drinking on my own, I'd never come to AA. Why should I? If I can decide not to drink and not drink, I wouldn't need to be here. I'm powerless over alcohol. My life has become unmanageable. No, Wally talked about the bedevilments last night. No, trouble with personal relationships, can't make a living, prey to misery and depression. Dude, when I first read the big book, I thought, man, whoever wrote this been following me around. Thank God for those who came before us. At the end of my drinking, no baths, no showers. I got a liver that's distended about 7 inches. Every time I take a drink of alcohol, I cough all this white stuff. My liver and my pancreas are ceasing to function. What I'm coughing up is pure alcohol. My body is now rejecting what my mind is obsessed with. I'm 32 years old and I'm dying of alcoholism. At this point in my life, I'm barred for life from my mother and father's home. I got put on a period of indefinite probation. I had got sentenced to 5 years in the state penitentiary, and the judge, my mother's brother, my uncle, was the mayor of our town. My family is full of professional athletes, people well known in business and religion and politics. Then there's me. And the judge said, before I throw you away, she said, I'm going to give you one more chance. She said, one dirty urine. She said, kid, so much as an aspirin, and I'm going to send you to penitentiary for 5 years. I'm going to talk about the mental obsession that precedes the first drink real quick. The first day I had to report to adult probation was on a Friday morning. I got off from work at 8 o'clock. They opened the door of adult probation at 9. I'm driving across town, and here's the thought that occurred to me. You know, they say they never test you on your first time reporting. They don't think anybody's that stupid. Can anybody relate to that thinking? And can you tell me who is they? I stopped off, got a double-header, old granddad, and staggered in there. And not because I'd rather be drunk than sober. So we got to stop saying that in here. Not because I'd rather be drunk than sober. If I had the power to quit drinking on my own, I'd have never come to AA. Why should I? Sitting in the parking lot of a bar, I had what they call a moment of clarity or a moment of sanity. There was a guy in Cleveland, six-pack Charlie Kitchen. Charlie used to say that's the moment when God paralyzes the liar in you long enough for you to see the truth. And what I saw that night was this, kid, if you don't stop drinking, you're going to die, and you better get some help because you can't do it by yourself, and you better do it now because you're running out of time. Out of nowhere. For the last 3 years of my drinking, I had tried everything within my power to stop. I went back to church. I read the Bible that night. I used to have a Miller High Life in this hand and a Bible in this hand. I couldn't shut it off. I quit hanging around them guys. I got the booze out of the house. I changed my shift at work. Do you follow what I'm telling you? And then I gave up. And the last 3 years of my drinking were the darkest years of my life. In my life, there was no right, no wrong, no good, no evil, no God, no devil. The three most prominent words in my vocabulary were I don't care. Um, and I never want to forget where that took me because I believe that's as far away from God as you can get. I don't hate, I don't love, I just don't care. My nickname was Poison, and I'm not proud of that. My nickname was Poison. A girl said one night, that's not a nice name to call somebody. Why do you guys call them that? And one of my buddies looked at him and said, spend an hour with him. And this is where my life is. And after I had this moment of clarity, I went and I called my best drinking buddy from school, from college, and he's a doctor today and a very powerful man. And I didn't know who else to call. I didn't know what AA was. I didn't know to call the AA hotline. I didn't know where no treatment centers was. I didn't know nothing. And I called my friend. And I owed him $5,000, hadn't paid him back a dime. His wife answered the phone, and this is what she said and how she said it. Richard, it's Kent. And Rich got on the phone, and this is what I said to him. I said, Rich, it's your boy, man. I need some help. And this is what he said to me. Man, I've been waiting for this call for 7 or 8 years. Pack a bag, stay by the phone. I got you. When I get a call from the intergroup office in North Central Ohio at 3 o'clock in the morning, you know what I tell them, don't you? Pack a bag, stay by the phone. I got you. And for that, I am responsible. Called me back about 20 minutes later, said, don't go to work, they're going to fire you. I want you to come down here. I'm going to put you in treatment in a place in Xenia, Ohio called Green Hall. Next morning, my brother and his wife drove me from Sandusky to Richard's home in Centerville, Ohio. This is all down by Dayton. It's 225 miles from where I live. I'm in the back seat, my brother and his wife in the front seat, and I got 24 buddies in the back seat. It's a case of Genesee. And as we riding down the highway, and I'm drinking these cold Jennies. Now, I didn't know too much about treatment, but I had figured out on my own they wasn't serving no liquor in there. So as we driving down the highway, I get 6 or 7 of them cold beers in me, and y'all ain't going to believe I had a visit from the enemy on my way to treatment. And here's what the enemy told me after a few cold beers. You know, I just may have overreacted here. Ain't that what it do for you? Man, I used to go in Ev's Corner Bar, homicidal, suicidal, shaking out of my skin. Ev had poured me an 8-ounce water glass of Granddad. He put a cold Miller's down beside it. I'd get them down. 5 minutes later, I'm pumping quarters in the jukebox and telling some old woman she's in for the night of her life. The effect produced by alcohol. What I didn't know is that my father had told my brother and his wife, I'll give you $100. You don't bring that tramp back here. That's a true story. We got down here to Centerville, and Richard put me in his car. He drove me to treatment in Xenia, Ohio, and he bought a quart of Miller's at the gas station before we left Centerville. He said it was always your favorite. We pulled in the parking lot of Green Memorial Hospital. I had about this much left in that quart. He put his car in park. He turned and looked at me, got the biggest smile I ever seen on his face. He said, go ahead, dog, finish that. And don't ask me how I know it, man. He said, that's the last drink you ever going to take. And they put me in a detox bed. And when I woke up the next morning, I did not know that that was going to be my sobriety date because I didn't know what a sobriety date was. It was May 18th, 1992. And I have not had another drop of alcohol or anything else since that day. And I'm going to tell you why, because it ain't got nothing to do with me. If I had the power to quit drinking on my own, I'd have never come here. The reason that it has happened is because of God, this program, and you. That's why. Because AA works. And if you new in here, you ain't got to keep going in and out. Where I live, they come back to the meeting and they go, I want to reintroduce myself. I've relapsed. So I'll always go, can I ask you a couple of questions? Sure, Kent. Did you have a sponsor? Well, no. Did you read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and apply the 12 steps to your life a day at a time to the best of your ability? Well, no. Did you have a home group and service commitment and try to help others? Well, no. Well, What exactly did you relapse from? If a relapse is a return to a prior condition and the prior condition is untreated alcoholism and the treatment for alcoholism is a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps and you haven't taken these steps, I got a message for you. You have not relapsed. You have continued to drink. We're giving people the impression that meeting attendance is AA and they're getting drunk and people are thinking AA don't work because they think AA is attendance. And we got to stop that in here. We got a program in here. We have there's people that work the steps, have a spiritual awakening, stop doing it, get spiritually blocked, and drink again. That's a relapse. Okay? We got these people that ain't relapsing. They ain't got nothing to relapse from. Got a detox, I went to men's group. They had men reading out loud stories of their drinking escapades in the streets. Counselor said to me, Kent, your first day in group, tell us what you think about what you heard. I said, I'll tell you what I think about what I heard, Jim. Well, I'm down here for a few days to get help for this small problem I might have. I would like to volunteer my time, service, and energy to help you with these people. These are the sickest people I've ever seen in my life. That one statement got me an extra week of treatment. I spent 35 days in a 28-day program. My insurance ran out at 28 days. They called out the Ford plant, and they said, we don't think Kent's ready to leave the hospital. You know what they said out the Ford plant? We don't either. The next morning, they brought me down to the nurse's station where my enemy married a nurse who was 28 years in AA, hung a sign around my neck this big. It said, I am not a counselor. I had to wear it for a whole week. Next day, they had me write and read to the group. I did. I got done. Jim said, put your chair in the middle of the room. Let's make a circle around Kent and tell him what we think of him. I'd like to start the ball rolling by saying, Kent's so full of BS, his eyes are turning brown. If you threw him in water, he'd float away. That was the nicest thing that was said in that room that day. And what them guys told me was if I didn't get honest with myself, that I was going to leave that place, drink, and die. It's the first step. We heard how it works read here tonight. It said, this is a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. I got a message for you. That ain't a suggestion. My sponsor, Kenny, told me, get honest or die. I went back to my room and I sat on the bed and I got honest with myself. In the street, we used to say, game recognizes game. You know, people in here tell stories Stephen King couldn't make up. You know, we do stuff that's beyond the imagination. I knew whatever them guys had, I had. And I made a decision to be as honest as I could the rest of the time I was there. I went to my first AA meeting at Green Hall. It was a discussion meeting where a lady said out loud something I wouldn't admit to myself. She was from out of town. They said, anybody got a problem? And they went around the room and they shared with that lady similar problems they had had and solutions they had found. Nobody judged her, criticized her, condemned her. Nobody said, how could you do that? How could you be that stupid? I saw the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous come to the aid of a complete and total stranger at my first meeting with no judgment or condemnation. And my thought at my first AA meeting was, how could something like this exist and I've never heard of it? I was given a gift of loving AA the first time I saw it. And I thank God for that. And if you're new in here and you ain't loving it yet, keep coming. Keep coming. Get a sponsor. Get a home group. I got out of treatment after 35 days and I went home. It's called don't drink, go to meetings, and don't do nothing else. If I put my arm through a window and I cut an artery in my arm, I put a towel on my arm, I drive myself to the hospital, I run into the emergency room, I'm bleeding to death. Doctor comes from behind the curtain and says, come on back, Mr. Coleman, we'll treat you now. I sit there in the emergency room, bleeding to death, look at the doctor and say, no, thank you, I'll just sit here. And I bleed to death in the emergency room. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the emergency room. I've been in AA long enough now, I've watched people who attend these meetings on a regular basis die of untreated alcoholism before my very eyes. The treatment for the disease I suffer from is a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, period. Period. Bill Wilson, co-founder of AA, wrote that any AA group whose purpose is not to carry the message of the 12 steps to the newcomer is doomed to fail. Period. It's probably the best time in the world, the history of AA, to be a member of AA. We are inundated with more meetings than ever, literature, conferences and conventions, CDs. It's a great time to be a member of AA, but I want to share something with you. Those things in and of themselves are not a substitute for the spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. Don't say, haven't had a spiritual awakening as a result of attendance. And see, when I learned that the purpose of all the wonderful things we have now is to facilitate the 12-step process in my life and help me to learn how to live better and share it with others, then things in here start to make sense. I went to 250 meetings in 3 months because I didn't have anywhere else to go. And after 250 meetings in 3 months, I ended up in the parking lot of Daly's Pub in downtown Sandusky, vibrating. I want to drink so bad. See, I thought alcohol was the problem. And it certainly is a part of it. But it ain't the problem. My problem sounds like alcohol, but it isn't. My problem is alcoholism. A disease of mind, body, and spirit that will kill me whether I drink or not if I don't treat it. And a lot of y'all know what I'm talking about. Instead of going into Daly's Pub, I followed my first suggestion, 3 months sober. I said a prayer. And I said, God, what am I doing wrong? And like a lightning bolt, what are you doing right? I have no sponsor. Get a sponsor, get a home. I heard that stuff every day. I didn't do none of it. I treated AA like a cigarette-smoking, donut-dunking coffee clutch. And instead of going into Daly's Pub, I put my car in drive. I went to a meeting, and I went up to a man, and I said, would you help me? And this is what that man told me. He said, I will sponsor you out of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous the same way I was sponsored. And I will share with you the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous as outlined by the founders. And I will demonstrate for you how I live those principles in my life on a daily basis. You know, they call it 12 steps a kit of spiritual tools. I love that. I got a toolbox at my house. I ain't never watched a hammer and screwdriver walk across the floor of my living room and fix a thing. The only value of a tool is if I pick it up and use it. The only value of these steps is if I apply them to my life. I've had the great privilege of standing behind podiums of AA all over the world. I have yet to attend a meeting where somebody stands up and says, works if you know it. And my sponsor took me through the steps of AA as I tried to live them in my life today. My sponsor told me, bury yourself knee deep. He said, no, forget that. Bury yourself shoulder deep in this thing called AA so you can't teeter and fall. And I've been shoulder deep in Alcoholics Anonymous from that day to this. I want to talk real quick before I close about my mom. I had the opportunity to make amends to my mom. My mom and dad let me come back and live in that house because I didn't have a safe place to live when I came out of treatment. And my sponsor told me, it ain't going to be none of that I'm sorry crap. What I want you to do is something you've never done in your life. And I said, what is that? He said, go into that home and be the kind of son that God intends for you to be. And my mom had bone cancer, and she was dying, and I helped my dad take care of my mom. My mom saw me go to all them AA meetings. My mom saw me bring my first sponsees into that house and sit down at the kitchen table and open the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. My mama saw me put on a shirt and a tie and go speak at AA meetings when I didn't even have a suit. When she got close to the end, my sponsor said, it's time for the direct. They got her off the morphine. I went to the hospital. I had this big speech planned out. I sat down with my mom. She looked at me. I looked at her. She had tears running down her face. I had tears running down mine. And the only thing I could get out of my mouth is, Mama, I'm sorry. And my mom looked at me and she beamed. And this is what she said to me: I forgive you. See, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, my family lived like that. They ain't read no big book. I used to ridicule my family, call them squares, and they don't know what's going on in life and all that. I look back at it now, my mom and daddy didn't have a P.O. My mom and daddy could leave the state of Ohio without permission. What? And I'm laughing at them. I went to see my grandmother. I told my grandmother when I was 7 months sober, Mama, guess what? She said, what? I said, I paid my bills 7 months in a row. She said, I paid mine, Stephanie, 2 years in a row. Get out of here. People, I love the arrogance of our fellowship at times. I sit in AA meetings, you know what people say? Boy, them people out there sure could use what we got in here. Where do you think we got it? Those principles are ancient. There's people that live like that out there every day, and they don't expect a pat on the back for it either. My mother died holding my hands and looking in my eyes in that hospital room. My whole family up there, I got a big family, calling her name, and my uncle stood in the back of the room and said, don't call her no more. She ain't going to look away from him. That's how she wants to go, and that's how my mother left this earth. I want you to know something, that I've been blessed a million times over since that day. But if that was all I ever got, that was enough, thank God, for the fellowship and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. My dad died, I was 18 years sober, and he was here for a lot of stuff, and my daddy told me one time he had spent his whole life living in such a manner that he could hold his head high in the community, and that I had made him hang his head. And my dad and I became great friends. And I was in charge of all his business affairs and everything that he had. And after my dad died in 2010, a guy he worked with at General Motors named Joe, who's sober over 30 years, came to me and he said, Ken, I want to tell you something. He said, you did something one time that was on the front page of the newspaper, and your father came and told me that he was ashamed to come to work. When you got a year sober in AA, your dad came to see me again, and he said, hey, Joe, do you know my boy? And Joe said, yeah, Pete, I know him. And he said, man, ain't he something? Don't talk to me. Don't talk to me about what can't happen here. I got married in here, was married 18 years. I got divorced last year. I have 2 beautiful daughters, ages 16 and 12. They look like my ex-wife and my mother combined. I got some beautiful daughters. Act just like me. Stay tuned. Got divorced, thought my life was over, and the men in Alcoholics Anonymous came to my rescue. And I ended up in Las Vegas with my sponsor, Bob. And I became a member of Connected Dots. And there's some Connected Dots people in here today, and I want to say something to you. Thank you. Thank you for what you did for me when I got here, because I was tore up. And you got me active, and you kept me in the solution. And in February, I went back to Ohio, job back there, and wow. I'm happy, joyous, and free. My girls are fine. My life is good. If you're new here, I want to leave you with something. They gave me a tape of a man named Warren Chisholm Sr. from Cleveland, 12th man in AA in Cleveland. In that tape, Warren Chisholm Sr., who was a friend of my sponsor, Bill, made this statement, that anyone who comes here who is willing to practice the principles and precepts of this program as outlined by the founders in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous need never drink again, one day at a time. And I got goosebumps when I listened to that tape on my headphones at work. And I ran to my sponsor, Bill, and I said, he can't say that, Bill. And Bill said, say what? I said, never drink again. Bill said, oh, yes, he can. And he said, I'm going to tell you why he can say it. He said, because, Kent, this is a spiritual program, and God doesn't fail. There is no failure here, but I must participate in my own recovery. God will not do for me what I can do for myself. Those who do get, and those who don't, and it's just that simple. If I said anything to help anybody tonight, thank God. Do not thank me. If I didn't say nothing to help you tonight, guess what? It's some more meetings tomorrow. God does not make too hard terms with those who seek him. God could and would if he were sought. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Good night, Nevada.